When Sparty falls off a platform, he falls forever currently, which is obviously not good level design. In this lecture, we'll add a death zone that kills the player if they fall below the level. Our objectives will be to create the death zone game object, attach a collider and the death zone script, and do a code walkthrough of the death zone script. So just to test this once again, if I play and I run to the side of the world and I fall, I just keep falling forever and ever and ever. So, not good level design. So, one way to prevent that is to design walls and essentially box the player in. Another way is to, kill the player, as we've been talking about, create this sort of death zone. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and create a new empty game object. And I'm going to call this my death zone. And just like before, this is going to not really have a visual representation. So I want to give it a game object icon in my scene. So under the little drop down here by the box in the inspector, I'm going to go ahead and pick red color because it's death. And there we go. We've got our death zone shown there in the scene view. So the way that we're going to actually detect if the player hits this death zone is through a box collider. So let's go ahead and add that. Add component physics 2D. And do a box collider 2D. And we're going to basically make a very large box. So the size in the X direction, we want quite large. Basically, we want it larger than the player would ever be able to jump out in the world. So you can err on the side of being a little bit large. I'm going to make this 50 units. So you can see it's quite a bit bigger than my current level. So, if you made a new level that was a lot bigger, you'd want to go ahead and enhance the death zone to be even bigger still. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this down below my world, a little ways so the player gets to fall for a ways. So they get the sort of dramatic effect of falling. So let me go ahead and put it down here. And, what the heck, why don't we make it bigger? Let's make it 100 just so if we do make our level quite a bit bigger, we don't, by accident forget to change the size and then, the player falls off during play testing and we realize that we've got a bug in the logic of our game and we've got to fix that. So let's go ahead and add a death zone script. We've actually already got the script created. So let me go ahead and drag and drop it here and let's go ahead and test. So now I can run over to the side of the world again. I could jump and you can see when I hit the death zone triggers my death animation, and after a few seconds, it respawns it back at the beginning of the level. So let's do a very quick code walkthrough of the death zone script. You can see it's got one attribute, destroy non-player objects, which is defaulted to on. So let's go ahead and look at the script. It's much simpler than the character controller. So you can see it's just checking an on collision enter 2D. It checks to see if the game object that was collided with is tagged as player. So this is once again where the tags come into play. And if it was, it's getting the character controller 2D component of that game object, which of course is the player and should have the character controller 2D object. And if it does, it calls fall death. So fall death was a public function that we made on the character controller. Let me jump over to the character controller and we can look at that very quickly. So it calls this function called fall death right here. So, a public function to kill the player when they have fallen to death. So if the player's moving, we set the health immediately to 0. We play the fall death sound effect, and then we start this coroutine to kill the player, which we talked through before. So, it calls kill player, it does a few things, it waits for 2 seconds, and then it does whatever it does. So in this case, since we don't have the game manager yet, it loads the level back at the beginning. So the kill player is what actually triggers that death animation. So now that we've looked at the code, let's go ahead and just play this one more time so you can see the effect of this. Triggers the animation after 2 seconds. It essentially reloads the level, so everything resets back to the beginning in essence. So the death zone does have this destroy non-player objects. So in the script, you can see that if we're not tagged as player, and if destroy non-player objects is set to true, then it's going to destroy that game object. So in the future, if we have enemy characters or that sort of thing that fall off the world, we don't want them falling forever either. So we go ahead and kill them. We don't play an animation or anything. We just destroy them at that point. So that's what that does. Okay, since we have our death zone set up, we can now make it into a prefab. So let me drag and drop it into the prefab folder, and once again make it another part of our toolbox of components that we can use to build levels. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and save my scene. The death zone game object is just one way to kill the player if they fall below the level. Can you think of another? Discuss your ideas in the discussion that follows.